All right, welcome everybody. It is 4:32 and we'll call this meeting of Dunn County's Judiciary and Law Committee to order. And I'll call the roll. Supervisor Gilbert is absent. Supervisor Bauer.
Here.
Supervisor Vandermeulen. Supervisor Wilsey.
Here.
Okay. And approval of the minutes is next. The minutes were in your packet. Anybody have any comments or changes they'd wish to make? Or I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Supervisor Vandermeulen. Second, Supervisor Wilsey. All those in favor of approving the minutes from July 25th meeting? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, were there any public comments?
No.
No public comments. Okay. On to the staff reports. They were in your packet as well. If you had a chance to look those over. If anybody in the departments has anything they'd like to add to the reports, or if there's any questions from supervisors.
Could we just take these one at a time?
Sure.
My usual method is to scribble a little bit on each one.
Okay. Well, we'll do child support first. And I know that Josie has something to add to her report of a document that she sent over to everybody, or that Katie sent over to everybody this week.
Hello, so can you hear me? Okay. I did actually see a typo in my written report where it says annual trainings. My staff are completing those. They're not competing those. So sorry about that. I did have Katie send out in advance of today's meeting a nomination form and a letter in support. So a peer of mine has nominated me to run for an open board spot on the Wisconsin Child Support Enforcement Association's board. So elections will be in October at our annual fall conference, and then the term, if I were elected, would be 2 years, 2023, 2024. And then the letter in support is from Pam Pipkin, who is the current WCSEA president. The reason why I bring it to the board's attention is that on the nomination form itself, it says that I have to accept the nomination and that the county agency has to approve my attending the board meetings around the state, and that the cost to attend those meetings are Dunn County Child Supports, not the associations. So I was just asking for support in my accepting this nomination and running for the board. So there's 5 meetings a year, and that's addressed in Pam's letter. 2 of them are already in conjunction with meetings I would be attending anyway. So it'd be 3 additional periods of travel, depending on where the meeting is being held. So usually the board meeting is in the afternoon on a Thursday, and then there's a meeting with state persons from the Department of Children and Families on Friday morning. So it would sure be a Thursday overnight, but maybe a Wednesday, Thursday overnight, depending on, but I should be able to get to wherever in the state by 2 in the afternoon, I would think. Even if it's up in, Elkhart Lake or something at the Osthoff. That's a pretty decent drive from here. So these I believe we get the state rate even for the attending of these meetings. And I'm fairly confident I can absorb it in my budget, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, and this was discussed with the county manager as well, just to talk about these funds and if this needs to be approved at this time. But like Josie said, it could be likely absorbed into her budget, and then we would take a look at that when the budget comes around.
So that was it. That's all additional that I had.
And Josie, this is something you want to do?
Yeah. So I'm actually pretty active on the board anyway. I just don't hold. I'm not on the board. So I already attend meetings. I'm already known to not necessarily have a filter, so I'm, usually raising my hand and adding stuff in anyway. So now I'll actually have an official spot at the table. Yeah,
Official.
that's right. That's right. And it's actually a pretty decent thing, especially for, Dunn County is actually considered a medium-sized county, statewide, but how do I say this? Sometimes the state needs to be reminded that there's counties other than Dane and Milwaukee that exist. And so some of these, grandiose ideas that they want to do aren't necessarily great for smaller counties. And sometimes they need an official voice to remind them of that.
No, not at this time. I don't think, Any other questions for Josie?
I'm just gonna say congratulations on the nomination anyway, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, like I was telling John that many of the existing board members and officers have either recently retired or are planning their retirement. So the Gen Xers are moving into those roles. So, yeah.
Okay, next up is emergency management and 911. Anybody have any questions about that?
On the school cameras, they say they're trying to get into all schools. Are they all different? They all have their own programming or different, trying to get into them at all? Do you know? I guess.
Yeah, each school district has kind of their own camera system and how it does work. And the availability for us to be able to monitor that kind of depends on the requirements that they have for firewalls and different things like that. And then the access that, our IT department is able to work with. So currently we do have the Menominee School District. We need to work a few of the bugs out yet, but we do have it on our computers, and we're just kind of trying to improve it. We have all of the cameras in the Menominee School District, however, we are trying to correlate that with the paper maps that we have so that when we're looking at a map, we know what camera we're looking at so that we can better, give that information to the law enforcement officers if needed. So I know that Boyceville is another school district that has reached out to us in the past. And so I know we'll be working with them, but right now Menominee is the only one we do have. Mhm.
All right. If there aren't any more, we'll move on to the medical examiner.
I do not have any additions.
Okay, I had a quick question, which maybe is obvious, but when you say there's an increase in unclaimed bodies, which is increasing your load, is that unclaimed by who? Like family? What does that mean exactly?
There's a couple of different circumstances that result in an unclaimed body, and this has been something fairly new in the last 5 years of my almost 20 years of working. There's circumstances where we are unable to find any family members. There's no living relatives to claim the body and make decisions for final disposition. And now more often it's families that we are able to locate and they've been estranged for some reason or just don't have the finances and refuse to take the financial responsibility or the even the signing of papers, the authorization for cremation versus burial. And state statutes then reads that it falls to the medical examiner for final disposition. Now, I also work with the district attorney on that. I have not had to have Andrea sign this paperwork yet. A couple weeks ago, I thought I was going to, and adopt somebody who was part of the adoption of a brother by blood, but this child was adopted out from a different country, actually claimed this individual. But we write paperwork that describes all of the efforts that we've made in locating family and trying to get them to be involved in their final disposition. and then present that to the district attorney, and they sign the form and paperwork that we write. And then it is a cost to the county and we choose cremation because that's the most cost effective and it doesn't require burial.
Hmm.
And then that comes from my budget. And we just added a new line item to my budget that will be listed as unclaimed human corpse.
Hmm.
And so unfortunately, that's the situation our society is in, to have to face those situations.
Okay.
I got a question on the deputy promotion daily.
Mhm.
What was it?
Shaylee,
Shaylee,
mhm.
yeah. So you got funding up till 2022. What happens after that? I mean,
Yep.
they go back to, once you go back to your old job, or you try to put this funding in for next year's budget?
We put that funding in a request for next year's budget. We're within that request, we're taking some of our deputy medical examiner positions away to try and offset that. I met with our administrators, Chris Corpula and Catherine Shaw from Eau Claire County, as well as Beata and Norb from finance, and Jenna in HR. And we've had a lot of discussions on this. All agree that we have to continue to serve our county members by responding to every death. And it's becoming harder and harder as we lose deputies and training deputies to do that with a predominantly strong deputy staff versus full-time. And it's explained in the budget request, and we've talked about it at length over different years here in this committee as well. The deputies are max out at 1,559 hours a year of working, and at 24-hour shifts, that equals about 5 shifts per month that they can work. Now, they all have full-time jobs typically, and so I can't assign them days. They tell me when they can work, and us 3 full-time people fill in all of the other hours. It doesn't give us, right now, we were down to 4 deputies and 3 full-time, and it doesn't give opportunity for the full-time people to even take their vacations or sick leave. And we just experienced that both of those things in a 7 weeks long sick, absence from work of 1 full-time person really puts it on 2 full-time people, and we need 2 people on at a time, 1 per county. And when we do the math, there's just no way for that math to work out. With 4 salaried people, then we don't count hours that we work, so if you work more 1 week and a little bit less the next week, we can at least fill in that schedule and make sure both counties are covered based on what state statutes mandate that we do. Catherine Shaw, Eau Claire County Administrator, was very supportive of the department, very supportive of the decision to move Shaylee, as well as Chris Corpula and finance. Again, we have to bring it to the board, and then it's tough decisions to make of which departments get these asks, are able to make those budget changes.
Thanks, Marcy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next is the Sheriff's Department. And Sheriff Biggs report. Anybody have any questions about that? I didn't have anything. And moving on to courts.
I don't have anything additional to report unless there's any questions.
I don't believe so. And now CJCC.
Good afternoon. A couple of quick updates. One is a special training opportunity on September 12th. We have Dr. Ralston coming to Dunn County. He's the national leading expert on methamphetamine and stimulant treatment. So we get him for an hour and a half of training. We will be recording that, so folks that can't catch him live can watch it. But really just trying to get as smart as we can and be effective in treating methamphetamine. That's our number one crime driver that we see. So we're excited to have him in a couple weeks. And then we do have a new treatment court coordinator that will be starting on September 15th. So that position's been open for a while. And through some changes, finally got that filled. And then I just wanted to update folks if you may have heard in the general media, but there has been a class action lawsuit against the public defender's office in the state due to a backlog of 35,000 plus cases and not being able to really provide adequate defense, largely due to staffing. So some of those other challenges that we're just seeing in the system. So this just came about last week. So there are a couple of news articles, Wisconsin Public Radio and others have been picking it up. But there's, I'm sure, more to come on that. So there are defendants throughout the state that are part of this class action lawsuit. And it's against the state public defender's office. Yes, I think that's part of it, and just difficulty recruiting attorneys and retaining attorneys and providing that due process and adequate defense. I think we're seeing it on both sides.
I had a quick question about the firearm surrender project in St. Paul, just because I was a part of that meeting a couple months ago, and I just wondered what came of that. It looks like it was successful in education, I'm sure, but what is there a next step for the counties for that?
Yeah, there sure is. So thank you for asking. So a small team from Dunn County was able to attend that. It was a national convening of a couple communities that were selected to be part of this process. We were selected because the executive director was born and raised in Menominee, and she came and asked and if we wanted to be part of it. So our CJCC agreed, which we were part of that decision. So it was a lieutenant from Menominee Police and myself, a victim advocate from the Bridge to Hope wasn't able to join due to an emergency situation that came up. But we were there with about 5 or 6 other communities from across the country, really provided the education for us to look at our local jurisdictions and what are the policies and procedures for firearms surrender. So basically, when somebody comes to court, whether it's civil or criminal, and says that there's domestic violence going on, there's a gun in the home, there's steps that could be taken to safely secure that firearm. Wisconsin has a protocol. So what we're going to be doing is our small team getting us back together, but really getting victims' input on this. Really, what is their experience? What are some of the challenges that they've faced? Or if any, we might not have any issues going on here, but we were really equipped with how to look at the firearm surrender process to map it out and then bring back any changes. And again, since Wisconsin has a process in place, it's just really seeing if locally we're fulfilling that process. And people, different parts of the system are communicating as they should with other parts of the system. So those guns can be safely held for a period of time, depending on the court, and then given back in time as well. So a little bit of education and more work for us to do back here. We do have the technical assistance through the end of the year. So we're probably going to get a mapping session together before the end of the year to really kind of get all the heads in a room and talk out, well, what do you do when this happens and this happens, and see if there's any gaps that we can shore up here in Dunn County. But from the first blush, it seemed like everything was working as it should. So we'll just be double checking that.
All right, thank you.
Sarah, is there any connection to the recently approved gun control legislation in Congress?
No, they really, as a technical provider, it's the Battered Women's Justice Project. They don't take a stance on firearms. It's just too hot button ticket. They're just wanting to make sure that if people do have firearms, that they're safely secured.
I think I remember, some of the change was to further restrict partners, not just spouses. And I wondered if there was a connection between them.
There certainly can be. One of the last homicides that we've had here related to domestic violence was partners, same-sex partners. So that definitely is a growing trend across the country, and they would be protected as anybody else would. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And now the district attorney.
I don't have anything to add.
On your report, you're saying you're getting behind on your training. I mean, are you gonna go back and try to catch this up? Is there mandatory training you have to have and all that? Is it?
Yeah, it's mandatory every 2 years. So my hope is next year. But next year's looking really busy already. So it'll be a struggle, but we'll get through it.
Hey, Carl,
Abortion.
could you press the microphone, please? Thanks.
Is that, my understanding is that abortion is no longer legal in Wisconsin. I'm hearing about incidents of people with miscarriages, for instance, having difficulty getting treatment, and doctors being unsure what they can legally do to help people who are pregnant and have unusual complications. I'm curious, are there any questions related to that locally, or what's the current status of that?
Yeah, I haven't had any cases or issues come across my desk related to that, but it's certainly I think a hot button topic too.
A quick question on the letter you sent to the state prosecutor's office. Do you know, just out of curiosity, if there are other people in your position in other counties who are sending similar requests, and did you get a response yet?
No, we were just encouraged to send those requests. So yes, I think many other DAs are sending those. But again, I think it's a statewide issue too.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes there are state budget surpluses that shouldn't be surpluses. They should be spending money for things that are new.
Right. Okay, we're moving on to, there's nothing for item 6, and item 7, also nothing. Item 8, considerations of reports, resolutions, and ordinances. There's a budget adjustment from the Sheriff's Department. I know Marshall is here with us. Is there something you wanted to speak on that a little bit, if need be?
Just outline it briefly. It's a request for budget adjustment based upon a grant received from Dunn County Energy applied for by the First Responder Program for amount of $2,700 to be used towards obtaining a system for filling their oxygen tanks. And the second would be, there should be a correction that was forwarded to you for the second one, for a $250 donation from the Boyceville Fire Department to be used for the First Responders Program as they see fit.
Okay, thank you. Katie, do you know, is this something that we have to vote on, or is it?
Yeah, you'll have to vote on
Okay.
it.
All right. Well, then I would need a motion to approve this budget adjustment. Supervisor Bauer, seconded by Supervisor Vandermeulen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Resolution passes. All right. So, on to the next meeting, and what we have is September 26th at 4:30, the fourth Monday of that month. And, oh, I went past announcements, and what I wanted to say is I saw in your report, Josie, that there's a food drive for the child support month with a link to it.
Yes, August is Child Support Awareness Month, and so the child support agencies and some tribal agencies have partnered to have a virtual food drive. So there's a link in the materials, and I believe it was also shared on our Dunn County social media page. But the goal is $5,000, and they are far short from that. I think we're close to $3,000 raised, and there's only like 2 more days left. So anybody wants to contribute, feel free.
Thanks, Josie.
Mhm.
Anybody else have any announcements? All right. Seeing none, we are adjourned at 4:58. Thanks, everyone.